When people think of Remembrance Day, they often think of World War I and II vets, but it is also significant for every soldier that has served since then. I had a chance to speak with Ryerson Maybee. He is a captain in the primary reserve of the Queen York Rangers. He has served in tours in Bosnia as well as in Afghanistan, and he shared with me both the triumphs and the tragedy of serving our country.
So this is my granddad when he was a captain and serving in Italy in World War II.
I first met Ryerson in 2015 through mutual friends. I had no idea he had served our country for more than 2 decades, or that he had a rich family history of fighting for freedom.
Dad's dad and mom's dad, and then this is me.
Wow.
So yeah, it took a while, but I caught up to granddad.
And so when you get to Bosnia, I mean, you're young, you're stepping into a very hostile place. What was that like for you?
I was quite young. I was 22, and I remember a friend of mine had made me a mixtape, so I'm dating myself here, that I was listening to on my Sony Sports Walkman. We landed by plane in Zagreb, and then we boarded buses to bus down into Bosnia proper. And on the way, we had to go through the zone of separation, which is where a lot of the fighting had taken place. And it was at nighttime, and we were on a really tight bus, and I was listening to my Walkman, and the Talking Heads' Life During Wartime came on. That was on the mixtape, and it was the perfect song to go through that particular stretch of turf ever. And so that memory is forever etched in my mind. You know, middle class white kid from Toronto, with all of the altruistic notions that entails, goes overseas, and we never mind the destruction caused by the war, but the poverty and the different standard of living were very eye-opening. And it reinforced something that my father had said to me when the Iran hostage crisis was going, which is that I was very lucky to have been born in Canada, and that I was very lucky to be Canadian. And that was extremely evident when we were patrolling Bosnia.
And you did 2 tours in Bosnia. You went to Afghanistan then in 2010.
Yeah.
You're much older with experience. How do you look at those things differently? Do you look at it differently? Do you walk into a country differently?
Yes. So it's interesting because one of the things that we talk about in the military a lot is first tour angries. So when you come home, generally, a lot of people who've just come back from their first rotation tend to be a little bit more angry with the world than your average person. And a friend of mine who had also deployed to Bosnia, but when the shooting war was on, we were in a bar one night, and he just, unprompted and out of nowhere, turned to me and said, "So, went to Bosnia, thought you saved the world, come home, nobody cares." And I was like, oh yeah, that's why I'm so mad. And because for us, going on tour is if not the culmination, it's certainly a career achievement, because you're testing your skills that you've practiced again and again and again for real in an operational environment where there are real consequences to failure and real consequences to success. So, and then the military esteems tours very highly. Individual soldiers esteem tours very highly. And then you come home and like your parents are happy they're in one piece, but that's pretty much the end of it. So, which was good, because when I went on tour number 2 and I was in command of younger soldiers who were on their first tours, I was able to say, hey, like when you get home, this is probably what's going to happen. Just remember that the fact that you went and did this thing that you think is really important doesn't mean that everybody else thinks it's really important.
What would you say to Canadians about the soldiers, maybe not only from the early wars, but the younger guys, that younger men and women?
The world needs more Canada. I've worked with the Brits, the Americans, the Belgians, the Dutch, and soldier for soldier, ours are the best there are. We're all volunteers. The vast majority of us actually care about making a difference and actually care about the environment that we're in. So, you know, we try to learn the local language. So yeah, I would want Canadians to know that they're well represented when we go overseas by all the members of the Canadian Armed Forces.
So now I guess as you sit and you take in Remembrance Day from here in Canada, what does it mean to you?
I think about Gilles Desmarais, Jim Ogilvy, Danny Hodges, Tom Ankner, those are all soldiers that I served with who, Gilles and Jim died on my first tour. They didn't get the Highway of Heroes, because that sort of predated that. And then, of course, I think about all the casualties that I helped repatriate from Afghanistan. I think about standing on the ramp at Kandahar Airfield and on the ramp at Trenton. That's what I think about. And then, to a lesser extent, but with no less gravity, I think about the sacrifices my grandfathers made. My mom's dad was overseas for 6 years in way more difficult circumstances than I've ever faced. It's a bittersweet kind of day because you think about the people we've lost, but you also think about all that we've accomplished, and that the world's at least marginally better than it might have been if we hadn't done what we've done.